audio working, so I don't need to listen to myself. All right, so when we look at, I guess, the iOS platform, it has been growing a whole lot, which I find to be really beneficial. That allows us to target more customers and really opens up the platform to new possibilities that we haven't been able to have. I keep moving my window. I'm not supposed to. We keep getting new customers, which is good when you're publishing apps. And so I'll just jump through some of the screens and talk about some of the talking points that I wrote down during the presentation. So they were talking about the original name for Mavericks and the new version, and that is changing, and it's going to be called Yosemite. It's going to be based on the parks, so that's going to be interesting. Basically, what that's going to do is it's going to refine the colors, the content, the layout of a lot of the apps. It's more cosmetic, and it's not really going to, it looks like, be a big impact on things. You're going to have new toolbars. The content's sort of going to expand a little bit, but it's going to have that blur effect that we have in iOS 7, and it looks like they're continuing that with iOS 8. I guess one of the new things is there's going to be a dark mode, which is kind of interesting for going forward. So the other thing that's really interesting about the new Mac operating system is that there's going to be the continuity, which I really like, and that's where we'll be able to have apps sort of exist both on iPhone and Mac and sort of go between those two different things. And that's going to make it easier to transfer stuff. I know for a long time I've wanted, I guess since they announced it, AirDrop to work between Mac and iOS, and it hasn't. And that's one of the things that will be changing with the latest version. So you can see the old version here. This is what it currently looks like, and now we're looking at what it's going to look like. And it's going with the iOS 7 sort of refined model for icons, just trying to make everything look a little bit nicer. And I think that's a good thing, because for a long time, over the past year with iOS 7, it sort of felt like Mac was not going to get an overhaul. And so you can see sort of how it's going to look. It's going to be similar, but it's going to be a little bit different. The notification center has been improved. There's going to be widgets over here. You can customize the widgets, which will be good. The search has been improved. You can search a whole lot of different things like Wikipedia and web resources. So that's going to be really interesting, because it's really providing a lot of access without you having to go to the web browser. The Spotlight has been vastly improved. So throughout the presentation, they did some live demos, and they basically talked about a lot of the features, and then they went through them. I don't really think that's a real phone number for Phil Schiller. So they posted some stuff they called Dr. Dre, which was cool, with some of the new features. And the other big thing here, and I didn't get a good screen grab of it, but this is the cloud drive that they're introducing, and this is going to allow us to, so this is the iCloud drive. This allows you to edit any of the files that you have on iCloud. And for me, it's kind of been a black box to work with these files. I have stuff in iCloud, and I can't really get to them. Like I post a lot of pictures on Facebook or Twitter. Anytime I'm doing like a blog post, it's a royal pain in the butt to go from getting an app screenshot as I'm working on a new app to posting it to social media. So I'm hoping that this iCloud thing will make syncing easier and make it easier so that I can upload images to websites. Because my biggest issue is that the file open dialog is really archaic. It doesn't work well with photos that you have in your photo cloud. And there is some integration, but it's really been underperforming. So those are the new folders that we can see right here, and that's really going to help with just being aware of where your files are and interacting with them on different devices. Another thing that they have is there's this markup that they're adding into the Mail app where you can mark up your images or sign PDFs. And that just makes it a whole lot easier. I have to do a lot of PDF editing when I'm signing contracts with different clients or customers. And having that functionality built in will make it so that there's less sort of jumping around to get things working. There's improvements to Safari, and they're basically redesigning the UI a little bit. It's really not that different from a toolbar perspective. They're hiding some stuff. I always have my favorites visible, but they're making favorites so that they now appear right below the search bar when you're typing in an address. So that's kind of handy so that you get a visual thing to click on. The visual with the text is going to make things a whole lot easier to get a quick understanding of what you're looking at. So color and shape are really helpful in making things more usable. And I'm glad that they're not doing the monochrome or the no color black and white icon. So that's going to be really good for websites and visibility between those. They're making it easier to share stuff, and they're bringing back RSS. That's kind of a big thing for me. They took that out, and so anytime I try to go to an RSS feed, this was originally supported with the Safari browser. It doesn't work. And then I have some apps, and the apps don't work. And I really don't want to invest time trying to find the apps that will work. I just want it to work. And so I'm excited about that feature because right now my alternative, I think, is Dig Reader, and that is not great. All right, so the other thing that's cool here is it's easier to share directly. I do like sharing certain things with some of my friends, so I'll take a screenshot or a picture of an app that I'm working on or a certain thing that I find funny, and it's nice to quickly post that in an email or airdrop it to a local device where I can do editing or some other kind of thing. The handoff and airdrop, that's kind of exciting for me. And I think I've got some screenshots. The web stuff isn't super exciting for me. The playback, I guess there is one more thing here. The playback of Netflix is supposed to improve with your battery life. They're doing some kind of special 1080p HD video player. I guess it's going to be sort of a progressive player, so it's going to be more than just that. But it's supposed to play stuff without any plugins, which is a big plus because I hate installing Silverlight on a new Mac or when I have like a new user account or something like that. There's performance improvements. And then we're back, I think, to a live demo of the markup for the Mail app. So this is how you can highlight some climbers, write a little bit of text. He did a multi-threading joke here, which probably goes over everyone's head unless you're a programmer. So Craig was pretty much running a lot of the tech show with Tim Cook sort of handing off different things. All right, so the Handoff API was what I was really excited about because it's been a pain for me to switch between devices and switch between different things. A lot of times I take screenshots or I'm working on an app or I'm working on an app description, and so I'm working in Pages or I'm working with a numbers document and I want to be able to transition quickly to something else. So Handoff is a new service that's going to make it easy for, I think, an app to register. And I don't know if there's an API I don't remember if they mentioned it. I think they did later on. But you'll be able to notify other devices around the user. So if I'm on my Mac, I can notify other devices that I'm registered. I can basically work on a Pages document on my Mac, and then I can just pick up my iPhone and transition to that. It'll close, I think, the Pages document on my Mac, and then it will open up on the mobile device so that I can continue editing. So that's a really nice feature. They're also doing some instant hotspot. Now, they didn't talk about pricing. I'm assuming that you'd have to be paying the service provider for the internet hotspot option. And I've done this in the past. I've turned it on, and I've used it when I've been away in a hotel where I know I'm going to have really crappy Wi-Fi. And this is just a way so that you can automatically have, I guess, Wi-Fi magically appear for your Mac just using your iPhone. So that's a really neat feature. Now, again, I turn that feature on and then I turn it off when I don't need it. And that means I'm changing my pricing tier for like AT&T. So I go up to like the 5 gigabyte, which is the one that supports the tethering in a hotspot. And then when I'm done with the trip, I turn it off. So I don't get billed continuously for the higher price data tier, and I can get sort of the best of both worlds with that. So super quick to connect. And they said that your iPhone could be across the room. You don't have to pick it up. They did some improvements with text messages. Now they're going to be syncing, and that's going to be cool because that allows you to just get all of your things on all your devices. They've added phone calls, which is neat. From a developer's perspective, it's nice that I don't have to pick up my phone, I guess. It's not really going to be a game changer for me necessarily, but it is a nice feature to have, and hopefully that includes higher quality audio. All right, he talked to Dr. Dre. That's Dr. Dre's phone number if you can read it. I don't know if that was a fake phone number or if he's got a temporary cell phone or if that's his desk phone. So if you want to give him a call, it looks like it's a 408 number, and it's kind of hard to read from here. But you can watch the keynote and see if you could call it and see who answers. I don't know if I recommend that though. So there's a lot of changes for the users there. The developer preview is going to be available today, so you can download it probably now if the dev portal is up. And it's free, which is going to be good because that means that users will be using the cutting edge technology. And so if you're making Mac apps or you're making iPhone apps, you always want, or any apps in particular, you always want your users using the latest software because it is going to give them the best experience. There's going to be new APIs and stuff that they can use. Now we're moving on to the iOS stuff. 130 million new Apple users, which is a big number, and that means that there are a lot more people looking for apps and things like that. There's much less Mac users, so you're going to have a lot less Mac devices being sold. So these are predominantly going to be iPhone and iPad users. They proceeded to make some jokes about Android, which was a little bit humorous. Basically, they're cutting at Android because so many of the users are not up to date. So only, they said 9% are running KitKat versus iOS running 89% on iOS 7. And regardless if you think this is a minor issue, like if people are running Ice Cream Sandwich, the fact that I as a developer can't publish an app and then force people to use the latest version is sort of, it's just going to introduce complexity for myself to release that app. And I have to do updates to the app. It's going to be more complex if I can't use the latest APIs. And so that's why I like iOS, because I can always target the latest APIs and I can use new stuff. And I know my large base of my customers are going to be upgrading. So I can sort of forget about the old ways of doing things and move on to the new things. And if you saw anything about the update with the new programming language, like being able to use that is going to be killer. And that's going to be on iOS 8 only, is my guess. So I haven't looked at the Developer Center yet, but I can imagine that Apple's going to be pushing people forward because of these new developer tools. And Android has not done that, and that's the biggest issue with them. All right, so now we're moving on to the iOS 8 and the dev stuff. There's a lot of enhancements with the Notification Center. They got rid of that, I think, missed tab, which I thought was very confusing. I didn't understand why I had it. I didn't understand when things were there. And every time I went there, it was empty, so I don't really get it. The other thing that you can do here is you can respond to certain events directly. And I don't know if there's an API for programming how it looks. It would be nice if there is. It might just be some options for either doing a text input or a button yes, no. We've got a redesigned tab view for iPad. And you've got a sidebar when you're in the browser. The email stuff was updated. This just makes the email better for multitasking so that you can use multiple emails to compose a new email. Another thing that you can see here is you can respond directly to iMessage. So this is sort of like what Facebook was trying to do with the Facebook phone. They came out with the Facebook heads, and they were making it so that you could have like chat heads anywhere. That sort of allowed you to directly interact. well, this is sort of Apple's approach to it. They don't have like the chat heads that can go anywhere, so that they don't have like the UI conflict. They keep it all on the top, and you can respond sort of inline right there. You can type your message, or you can use Siri. Now, I don't know if I have any good screenshots on Siri's upgrade, but they did talk about Siri going forward is going to have a much better user experience, similar to how Google works, where it's not going to give you like that 3 dots for like a minute before it shows you the text that you're speaking. It's going to actually write it as you talk. You could have inline comments and likes. And so this looks like you can have custom buttons for this type of thing. So I'm guessing that the developer can just set that. So that is nice, just because it streamlines stuff. And if you get a Facebook notification like that, that's going to probably promote more interaction with it. So we could see more interaction coming from mobile users, since it's more streamlined for that experience. They're bringing favorites to the multitasking view. I don't think they did any changes to multitasking beyond that. So they're making it so that it's easier to connect and share stuff with your contacts, but they didn't really talk about any changes to how multitasking is going to work. So it looks exactly the same to me, beyond just having some extra bubbles above it. And then they're making things a little bit smarter, so you can create events from something inline. And I guess it's an automatic sort of highlight. Before they would like do the underlying text, and they would say, okay, you can add this to the calendar. And I think this is more obvious. And so it's something that a user's not going to have to go through. QuickType is interesting. This is new keyboard stuff. They're making it so that you've got these words that you can just tap on quickly, and you can see what has changed. So that's going to make it more convenient for typing, and it's also context sensitive. So what I thought was interesting about this is someone could ask a question, and what Siri's going to do is she's going to parse the question and give you some quick options that you can just tap on instead of typing out full words. So that's a good way to say, okay, yes, I want to go to a movie, or I want to go to dinner, I'm not sure, and quickly respond to something. And then they just gave some demos of it working. Let's see what else we've got here. Attachments. So now you've got some improvements with the group messaging, and this is where we can have the most frequently app. Well, Messages is the most frequently used app on iOS. That's because everyone's always in contact with people, and they're improving group messaging so that we have named threads, and there's a way to leave a thread so that if you're on a thread with family members or coworkers and they're just blabbing on about stuff, you can just turn them off into a do not disturb mode, and you can leave the thread. And you can share your location with those users, and you can also see all of the group photos, and that's what you're seeing in that picture. They also made it easier to send a voice message or a video message. I'm not sure if this is sort of a swing at Snapchat or something like that, where it's making it more convenient and using gestures to respond to people. So that's sharing location, which is good, I guess, if you're trying to meet up with people. So it's probably better if you're near each other. And then you can play the messages in stream. You did a little duck face for the demo, and we had a little mishap with Craig's hair. This last thing, there's just some editing features. I forget exactly why I have that one there. Editing features for your photos. All right, there's other improvements for enterprise. A lot of companies use Apple products, and this is just for them. It's not very exciting, so we'll skip it. In terms of health, Apple's making it so that you can register for different biometrics, and any app can basically post information to sort of this secure location on the iPhone where you can get weight, blood pressure, high blood pressure, diabetes, and it's to sort of move away from having a silo of data. Any app can contribute, and then I think you can control the access. So there's obviously going to be some security related to that, so that no one picking up your phone can get access to all of that if you don't want them to, and you can grant access to different apps that are going to be using that. So that was a I guess, a welcome change just to sort of help people live a little bit more healthier, keep track of things without having to worry too much. Photos now are going to make it easier, and I think they're dropping the I from Photos. They talked about this beta product that's not going to be out yet, but this is sort of mixed with iOS, and part of it's going to be available in the fall, and then part of it, I think, next year, where anyone can contribute photos. The other thing that they're adding here is the ability to have a shared credit card on the device so that you can purchase stuff. And I think I took that one a little bit out of sync here. So these are the photos that you take. Apple will sync all of your photos. It might be 200 gigabytes of photos that you have, and you don't need to have them all on your device, but they'll be all synced to the cloud. And so there's going to be iPhone access and then Mac access to it. And I'm looking forward to that because I think Photos has been sort of broken on iOS for a long time with the iPhoto and just being able to move those photos around. So they're making it easier to edit stuff with your photos and some more natural controls, which I think is a benefit for the average user who doesn't know anything about exposure or brightness and contrast and doesn't want to deal with those. It automatically adjusts the different levels, and then you can sync it between devices, which is a big thing. So that image can be synced to the iPad. You can edit it on the iPad, and then it syncs back. So here's where they announced that they're working on this new photo app, and I think it's going to replace Aperture and maybe replace iPhoto, or at least replace iPhoto. Aperture might continue to exist, and this is just a way to, I think, see the photos that are in the cloud and interact with them a little bit easier than the current solution. Hopefully that really centralizes things, because I know that Photos has always been a little bit messy for me on the Mac. So they're bringing the same tools on both. They announced the pricing. It's going to be, I think, 99 cents a month for 20 gigabytes. So that's what, $12 a year for 20 gigabytes. I know I have around 60 or 70 gigabytes of photos, and I know it's going to increase. So they have a 200 gigabyte option, and that's 4 times 12, so around $48 a month, close to $50, probably with tax. And that will be nice. And you can go up to 1 terabyte, which is nice. So it's basically going to cover any consumer. It might not cover any of the professionals, but it's a good start. So Siri's been improved. We've got Shazam. You can purchase content using the Shazam service. Sort of stuff has been in there. And now we get into the dev stuff. So they added new support for developers, which will be good because there's a lot of people visiting the App Store and there's a lot of apps. So we have a new Explore feature on the iPhone. So you can, I think this is an improvement from where they did sort of like the location-based apps. It looks like from this screenshot that they've removed that, and it's going to be focused on exploring different things. So maybe you can explore location apps, but it won't be the focus. There's going to be categories, there's going to be subcategories, and there's even going to be a trending section. The other thing that they're doing here is they're making a continuous scroll thing, and this is something I really like because this is an interface that I've worked on before in one of my other apps, and this allows you to just keep on scrolling, and you can see new apps and just scroll down. So it looks like you can get 1 or 2 apps on a screen at a time, so it's not just a single app on the screen, just so that you can see a little bit more and compare maybe app icons. So it's going to give the user a little bit more to look at. Not much. And the other thing that you can do is you can do an app bundle. So it looks like we've got the Toka haircutting apps, and you can bundle these up. The developer can bundle them up, and it looks like you can set one price for all of those apps, and then the user can buy that bundle and download it. And the other thing that they're adding are these video previews, and they call them app previews, and they're short videos that a developer can upload. And so here they've got Monument Valley with the preview, so you can see what the game is about. I don't think it's about testing the game. It's all about just looking at it and seeing a little bit more than a picture, because a picture doesn't always show you the whole flow. It doesn't show you what to expect. And I think that's Apple's sort of solution to trials right now. They might add trials in the future, but it doesn't look like they will. I think they want people to to really go out there and either download a free app or purchase something. And that's something that Google doesn't push as much, the purchasing aspect, which is why developers start on iOS, because more people are willing to pay. All right, so they're saying that they've changed the App Store search algorithm. I didn't see that when I was going over my notes. So that's kind of big for a developer. Right now, I'm using a service called Sensor Tower that allows me to look at keywords. And it looks like I'm going to have to sort of revise what I'm doing with that to go with the new App Store search. I don't know if that's underlying algorithms or if that's just what they were talking about. And I think I have a screenshot here. I think along the top part, there are some suggestions right underneath the search bar. So it's something new that is coming. All right, so then we're onto the SDK, and this is where the exciting part happens. So if you are a developer, this is probably what you're most excited about. I mean, some of this stuff was exciting. We have the extensibility, and this is sort of a plugin architecture for any app and services on iPhone. So different apps can register to have sort of these different widgets that can be used in app. And that's exciting for a developer because now you can provide sort of new filters to different apps that expose it. So like the default camera app can have new photo filters based on different things. And so they've got a security model that they try to illustrate here. And what they show as one of those plugins is that Pinterest can have their own share sheet. And so if you've seen the share sheet for Twitter or Facebook, those are built by Apple, but now anyone can build one of those share sheets, and they can get that color icon in that top row when you go to do a social sharing action. So that's a nice thing. So here's the photo. They're going to open it up with another app, and then they do a little mosaic on it. So that creates an artistic rendition of the photograph. Then they can share it. And then the other thing he was just demoing was, I guess, the notification center. So here are some photo filters. And then here are documents that can be opened in different apps. So we're in the Pages app, but you can open the document, or I think this is the create new document or something like that. I don't remember exactly what he clicked on, but now you've got the Box app, you've got OneDrive, and you've got copy from iTunes and these different things. So Box and OneDrive are two apps that are custom that someone else wrote, I believe. I don't think OneDrive is Apple. You can respond to notifications directly in the app, so that's kind of interesting. My camera cut out. So that makes it easier. So he's rebidding on something on eBay, which is neat to have. He can translate in line on a website, and he can post to the social media on Pinterest. Now, the other thing is there can be custom keyboards. So this is big because there hasn't been any custom keyboards on iOS, and now like Android, you can have custom keyboards. So it looks like the swipe keyboard is coming to iOS, which will be nice. TouchID now has an API that any developer can integrate and use. That's a new feature, so you can log in with that. There's a HomeKit thing for working with different devices, and you can create, I guess, scenes. So this is for developers to organize the things in your house that are going to be smart and connected. The other new things here we have is a web backend for app developers, and this is something that's going to be good for any developer who's looking to start something. You have to right now use Parse or CloudMine or run your own custom web service, and now Apple's making it so that they will do that for you. So they're basically going to take the app logic, and they said build it into the client side, and I don't know if I have a screenshot for that. Right here, they moved the app logic to the client side, so I don't know exactly what that means. I guess we'll see when they talk about that a little bit more. But basically, it'll store a lot of stuff, and it's going to be free up into a limit, so you can basically use this for any any app that's not going to be crazy huge. And they do give some pretty big limits. I'm not sure if I got a screenshot of that, because the next thing that they talk about was here it is. So we've got 1 petabyte of assets. That's a lot. So if you've got photos, that's a good amount. And then you've got a 10 terabyte database. That's pretty big. In terms of transfer, you can do 5 terabytes of data per day for all of your users of your app. And we have a 50 gigabyte a day database transfer. So that's for modifying users' profile and different account settings and stuff like that. So right off the bat, this is very good. This is way better, I believe, than anything that you can get with Parse, which basically throttles you based on the number of requests, not the actual usage, which is cool. All right, so if we backtrack a little bit, I had some screens in here about this new thing, and I only have a screenshot here of OpenGL ES, but you can see that normal games are built on OpenGL, and Apple is doing this new thing called Metal. So that's the logo for it, and this is supposed to reduce the overhead of OpenGL. So I'm guessing you don't have to do any OpenGL calls, and I'm guessing that they have their own framework for that. It's providing graphics and compute options. I'm wondering if that's related to OpenCL. For the compute. And then you've got precompiled shaders. I believe before you had to compile them on the fly, which meant that if you did any of those visual effects that did high gloss or materials, it was just, it requires a lot more CPU resources and stuff like that to get it going. So this is going to be a big improvement and efficiency thing. You've got multi-threading, so I'm assuming that they've got better support for either breaking up complex work that you want to do on the GPU. So maybe you're doing an image editor and you want to do graphics processing for that. And it's designed for A7, and I'm assuming that's going to be also designed for A8 when that comes out. So they're working with big partners like Unity, Crytek, and Epic Games. And so they gave some screens of this. So I've got some of these screens a little bit jumbled because I missed some of them. But here you can see some games, and then they demoed how this framework works. So you can see this, and they're basically saying that this couldn't be done before, and there's a 10x improvement. So they basically simulated flocking simulations, and this is type of stuff that you would do in a computer science class if you took any graphics or animation courses. I don't think that's entirely super complex, but it's that paired, it's the flocking simulation paired with the graphics. That's the impressive part. They've got a nice reflection here in the water, so that's going to be pretty impressive. And then they had a lot of objects. They said around 5,000. These are butterflies flying around the screen. So what do I have for my notes? It's basically reducing the overhead. They're saying that they can do 10x draw calls, which means they can do 10 times as much. And in this simulation, I believe they were doing 1.3 million triangles were being drawn on the screen, and they brought Frostbite to mobile, which they didn't think they could do before. And I don't know if that's the total truth or if they're just saying that now because they've got a better performance on it on the mobile, because it was definitely working before this point on mobile, and now they've just made it a lot better. They're talking about something about the new, and I think that's the last one I have. They did this raking demo with the sand. I talked about something about shaders there where the artist didn't need to come to a developer to fine tune it. And I don't know how much I buy that, because I know that when you're doing a lot of graphics programming, especially shader development, there is a lot of hand tweaking. So I don't think 10x performance improvement is enough to not need a developer doing that. So I don't understand the claim that they made in the video at that point. Now we have SpriteKit, and I really do not like these bubble logos. I don't know why they are using them. And I don't think Apple knows why they use them either, because you can see between SpriteKit and I think I have a screenshot of SceneKit, the bubbles are bubbles in the one screenshot, and then they are solid shapes in the other screenshot. They're intersecting in the one and they're not in the other. Slightly different. I really hate the Game Center logo, which is what this is based off of. And bubbles to me don't make sense for a game, but that's my, I guess, little rant. What they've added here with SpriteKit there are light sources, there's field forces, there's per pixel physics, and inverse kinematics. Now, if you've never done game development before, these probably don't make any sense to you. Light sources allow you to control how a scene looks. You can have shadows in different locations. You can simulate sort of a 3D world in a 2D game, which is kind of a cool thing. The field forces, I believe, is related to physics. It might be something about animating things around and having sort of a general area, because they did a demo sort of like that. Per pixel physics allows you to have the intersections of a graphics element with another element, and then they can interact. And they already had some of the physics stuff in there, but they're improving it. And then inverse kinematics is used when you want to have a walking cycle that's programmatically driven. And this, you can imagine, inverse kinematics is used to figure out, while a spider is walking, where it needs to put its feet on the ground. And it could be walking over stones or something like that. The inverse kinematics is a challenging thing from an animation standpoint, and it's something that you traditionally would have to code for yourself. So having that support in SpriteKit is nice. And I guess it's a little bit strange for me to think about inverse kinematics for just SpriteKit. It makes more sense for the SceneKit, which is the 3D version that they're now bringing from Mac to iOS. And so that's what SceneKit is on the right here. All right, so Xcode. I didn't even look at what's new with Objective-C. A lot of these things that I'm seeing on this list are things that are there. It just looks like they're being improved. So SpriteKit and SceneKit are the two new things. Those are good for games. SceneKit's nice because it's a 3D scene renderer. So this is something that a game developer would use when they want to keep track of what objects are in the game, what cars are racing in a racetrack and stuff like that. And they're making it so that it's designed for casual games, so making it easier for a new programmer to get started with making their own game. They've got the physics engine, they've got particle systems, and scripted actions. Now, I don't know what language the scripted actions are in, but I'm assuming it's either the new programming language that they're just releasing, or it's something like Lua that you can use to program those things. They didn't announce if Xcode's getting a version bump. I haven't gone onto the developer portal, so I don't know yet. But they did announce a new programming language, and that's called Swift. I don't know if they put it on any of their slides. Oops, we just lost our place there. All right, so Swift is Objective-C without Objective-C, and basically they compared it and said that it was a faster implementation for things. So if you want to do an object sort, and this happens when you've got like an address list or something like that, you want to search and sort it, or maybe you have 1,000 photos to sort that you downloaded from Facebook, stuff like that. Having an improvement is a good thing, but it really comes down to profiling your app. So you won't know if this is necessarily going to make your app work faster or anything like that unless you actually test it. But it sounds like from the examples they gave that it is going to be faster for doing certain things. They say that encryption is going to be faster. So I don't know if you'd be, I'm guessing you'd write some things with Swift and some things with Objective-C. They're saying that the three languages can now be used together. So that's sort of like how they did the Objective-C, C++ support. It sounds like this is going to be more native and probably a better option unless you need that cross-platform stuff. So Swift, just another platform-specific programming language. I don't know if it's going to be open to other platforms. It does look interesting, and as you can see with an encryption algorithm, that's going to be very CPU or GPU intensive depending on how you implement it. And I'm not sure how Swift is actually doing this, if it's using the GPU or anything like that. But you get massive performance improvements over Python, and that's not compiled Python. So that's just straight up Python. All right, so here we see all the different things that they've added. They talked about a couple of them. They're basically saying that they're getting rid of, I guess, go-to pointers, buffer overflows, uninitialized variables, unsafe string formatting, and unclear copy and reference rules. So basically, these are a lot of the issues that a beginner has when they get started with programming iPhone apps. So being able to get rid of those, and the next part in the video, all of these things sort of just fall to the wayside. So Swift is going to work on both Cocoa and Cocoa Touch, which is nice because they haven't updated the Cocoa programming stuff at all. And so I'm hoping that this is a way to sort of unify the two platforms to make it easier to write code that runs on both. Though it does look like there are some platform-specific stuff, so I don't know what type of improvements we'll have from a cross-platform perspective, but that is a nice thing because the Mac stuff feels really dated when you're working with iOS. All right, so this is using the LLVM compiler. That's the open source compiler stuff that's supported in Xcode, and it just makes things a lot faster than the traditional GCC. So if you ever used that before, this is going to improve your compiler times, and it's going to also improve your syntax highlighting and code error finding and stuff like that. So that's the reason why you want LLVM, because it just provides so many features that you could leverage in a modern programming environment, which is a nice thing. It's got an optimizer and an auto vectorizer. I'm not sure exactly what they mean by that. I'm assuming that's all under the hood type of stuff that's going to be leveraged by the LLVM compiler. So those are just making it faster. Maybe that's where it gets a performance boost. It's not clear at this point. We've got Arc memory management, which is a plus. I really like it on Mac and iOS where I write my apps. Makes it a whole lot easier to think about the memory problems. And then I guess it's running on the same runtime as Objective-C. So these are nice things to have with Swift. So the three languages play nice together. And then they went over some demos. These demos were cool because Swift allows you to have interactive things. And this type of stuff has been sort of experimented with by Khan Academy, and Brett Victor has done a lot of stuff. So I don't know if Brett Victor was working with Apple on this or if this was just inspired by his work. But if you Google Brett Victor, he's got some really cool videos that show you how you can make programming a little bit more easy for a beginner to understand. All right. So you can see some demos. It kind of looks like JavaScript to me. I really haven't taken too much of a look at it yet, but it was cool how they could interact with it and update things sort of on the fly. And it looks like it has Xcode support. I'm not exactly sure what that means. It's something related to being able to open the project and work with Xcode, but I think it's a separate editor. There's going to be a language guide. There's going to be reference docs. I think the docs are available. I don't think they're complete on the developer site. And on day one, when iOS 7 and the new OSX Yosemite come out, you'll be able to submit apps to the App Store. So it sounds like you can create an entire app in Swift and then submit it, which will lower the entry barrier for some people. It's still a complicated process. All right. I'm going to wrap this up in the next, let's see how many more screens I've got. Okay, we're almost done. I'm going rock climbing in a few minutes. So there's some new features here, and it's hard to see, but in this screenshot, you can see that you've got variables on the left and then you got values on the right. And so it makes it easier. You can see what the image looks like. There's a little preview section for that. So that's kind of a neat thing to have with that. And here's a little preview of the images sort of being displayed in line. And I'll just make that bigger so you can see it. So he's loading 3 different images in. Now, normally I don't load all the images like this in my games, but maybe it makes more sense for Swift. So we'll see how that works out. And then they basically did a little recap of what they talked about after demoing Swift. I think I have one screen where they showed how they use Swift to convert to SceneKit. So here's a 3D version. So you can make a 2D game and you can release that. With SceneKit now on iOS, you can also make a 3D game. And so they show that the same or similar source code is used to make this game here, where the thing is moving around in 3D space. They had these little star things that were flying around and stuff like that. All right, so that's pretty much it for what they announced in their preview. They're redesigning a lot of the stuff on Mac. They're updating the keyboard. They're updating Spotlight on Mac. They're updating the keyboard and making it extensible on iOS, which is a big thing because a lot of people have been complaining about that. Photos and iMessage are being improved so that they work with people's use cases a little bit better. Enterprise support has been improved. They've added some HealthKit stuff for tracking your biometrics. It wasn't really the big thing, in my opinion. It was just sort of, here's this container that people can publish stuff to. And they added family sort of sharing so that one credit card can purchase apps on all 6 accounts. So you can have 6 different Apple IDs all associated with one account. If you have a kid, they can ask permission to buy an app, which is kind of a cool feature, so that they don't have to always bring the device to you. They can send you a notification and you can approve it or disapprove it or unapprove it, depending on that. And then for developers, they're improving the App Store. They're making it easier for developers to get some visibility with videos and improve search features for app developers. They're adding extensibility, which is critical for anyone who wants to have sort of a plugin architecture where you can provide a photo filter that the default app can use, or you can override some of the default behaviors for how different documents can be loaded and stuff like that. They've added TouchID APIs. They've improved the graphics for 3D graphics and games. They're making it better with Metal. The new programming language, Swift, which is supposed to make it easier for you to get started with programming on iOS. So I think those are big things for making the entry barrier a little bit lower for a beginner. And those are some of the things that I will have to look into with some of my future videos and iPhone programming courses that I'll be launching. And then they've added all of these kits. So we've got the PhotoKit, we've got the HealthKit, we've got HomeKit, we've got iCloudKit or whatever they call it, and then we've got the SpriteKit and SpriteKit and SceneKit. And these are just developer APIs. They provide a lot more feature sets, and these are things that developers will be using in their apps. Now you can download the beta today, and that is pretty much it for my roundup of the WWDC keynote that they did today. So I'm excited. There's a lot of new features which will help me get started with games, and SpriteKit's been on my radar. I've been currently using Cocos 2D for my game development, and I am anxious to check out SpriteKit in the near future. All this week, there's going to be developer sessions where developers can see different stuff. Now, that stuff is probably going to be under NDA until this fall, so I won't be publishing any videos on the new stuff that's coming out probably until fall, unless I find out otherwise. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of cool things that Apple hasn't presented because there's only an hour and a half or 2 hours that they present this presentation in. So with that, that's all I have to say. And I hope that you enjoyed this, or you were interested in sort of a developer's perspective on what's changing with iOS 7. If you do like this, hit the like button, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, where you can get more videos that I post on iPhone development, app marketing, and different strategies that I'm using for promoting my own apps. So if you want, just search the App Store for Paul Solt, and you'll find my games and my photo apps that I have on the store. And thank you for watching.